So, welcome to the 3-day Fertile Body Bootcamp. I am so excited to be offering this training. I think it's just really helpful to kind of like dig deep and figure out what's going on and understand why conventional practices don't really help you get pregnant. They don't really help you heal your body, but what you can do to heal your body. So that's what we're going to break down over the next 3 days. Today, we're going to talk about why the current things you're probably doing aren't working and how society leads us the wrong direction when trying to conceive. So let's get started. Welcome. So I am Megan. I am a Scorpio. I am an aspiring 46er. This is a hiking challenge in the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York, which is where I live. And all of the peaks are over 4,000 feet high. And so the challenge is to hike all 46 of them. Hiking family, we are a weenie dog family. I'm a weenie dog mom. We used to have 2. One did pass away, but we still have my one dog, Jackson. I am a someday homesteader. I want to have like chickens and goats and land, but for right now, still aspiring for that. And I am a nutritional therapy practitioner. So I did just want to, fill you in on my story briefly. So I got pregnant in 2018, had a very traumatic miscarriage at 13 weeks. I went on to then struggle to conceive. Doctors were fighting me to try to get labs drawn and just went on for months and months and months and months and months. I then ended up going to fertility doctor because that's just the next step you take, when you've been trying to conceive for a long time and it doesn't work. Did that. They told me that I had fibroids and that I would never be able to get pregnant on my own, or if I did, I would 100% miscarry. And they told me that I needed to have surgery for that and wanted to put me on birth control because there was a wait list for the surgery. And just all of that felt really wrong to me. I don't even like to take Tylenol or ibuprofen. So the thought of going on birth control sounded awful. And I didn't really want to have the surgery. So I was just you know what? I'm just going to do it on my own. So I started listening to podcasts, following accounts, reading blogs, everything you could do, I started doing. And within 4 months, I was pregnant with my rainbow baby that they told me that I wouldn't be able to have because of the fibroids. So he is now 2.5. You can tell because his toys are on my desk, aka show me you have a toddler without telling me you have a toddler. So became a nutritional therapy practitioner, learned all about metabolism and cellular health and having, a safe physical body. Then, more recently in 2022, got pregnant again, and I ended up having a missed miscarriage. And this was where the baby stopped growing at 6 weeks, but I didn't find out until an 8-week scan, and I had another miscarriage. And this is what really opened my eyes to the fact that it's not just having a physical safe body, which I did have. It's about having a safe emotional body as well, and that your mind-body connection is in sync. And I have a ton of unresolved trauma that I'm working through. I have a ton of subconscious beliefs that stem from my childhood that definitely cause issues in my life now, cause me to be a people pleaser and a yes person and always putting others before myself. I'm constantly looking for approval that I'm enough. I have fear of abandonment. There's just a ton of stuff that I was this is a missing piece that fertility doctors, of course, don't recognize this at all. But even other fertility people on Instagram, they leave out the mind body connection. They leave out the emotional piece so often. And this is why you have to address both, because you can respond to stress, and that can be real stress, or it could be perceived stress from your body. Your body perceives the world through filters based on things that happened to you when you were little, based on your subconscious patterns. So even if it's not actually a stressor, your body might perceive it as a stressor and keep you in this heightened place. So you can either respond to stress or have a fertile body, but you can't have both, because when you're stressed, your body is not safe. And you have to have a safe body if you want to have a baby. So that's what we're going to dig deep over the next 3 days. We're going to go, how you create a physical safe body, how you create an emotional safe body. And we're going to start with kind of how society leads us astray. But I'm really, really excited you're here today. And let's get into it. So first, sorry, this is not doing what I want it to do. There. Oh, no. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Okay, so first we're going to talk about how society steals our fertility. And you're probably like, what are you even talking about? What does this mean? Well, society steals our fertility in 3 ways. One, by forcing us or influencing us to deny our feminine self, which we're going to get into today. 2, through subconscious beliefs, which I just touched on a little, but we're going to dig into that on day 3. And metabolic dysfunction, so poor metabolism, cellular health issues, that's what we're going to deal with on day 2. But for right now, we're going to start talking about how society creates this masculinity within. So from day 1, basically, we have been conditioned to not be feminine. With the feminist movement for women to kind of be everything a man can be, do everything a man can do, it's kind of become this idea that women shouldn't be feminine. We shouldn't express our emotions. We shouldn't, we shouldn't be dramatic. So like from a young age, we've probably heard things like, don't wear that, get good grades, have the career, be independent. You don't need a man, stop crying, don't be emotional. You're so dramatic, suck it up, be a boss babe, or like the hustle culture. Don't listen to your instincts, just do what everyone says is right. Don't be authentic, just fit in. Don't be vulnerable, it shows you're weak. Like we've just been hearing this from the time we were kids. So as women, we're like suppressing our, we're suppressing our femininity. We're like, oh no, like I feel these, I feel these emotions, I feel these things, but like I don't want to be seen as weak and I don't want to be seen as vulnerable. So I'll just suck it up because people tell me like I'm being dramatic and I'm overly emotional. But like, that's what women are. Women are soft, open, playful, we're emotional, and we should be able to express that and be that. But with the feminist movement, it came this idea that women were just seen as like weak and feeble and like they just stay home with the kids and really they should be out there being CEOs and, doing everything a man can do. And, in the idea that like man and women should make the same amount of money, like, of course, but like in the world of biology, man and woman were made different for a reason. We have different attributes, different qualities, different strengths, different weaknesses, and that's what makes us compatible. That's what makes us who we are. So in the, endeavor to try to be everything a man is, we're giving up our own femininity. We're giving up our own natural biological, qualities. So what does independent woman conditioning create? It creates women who people please, follow the rules. You are always trying to achieve. That's something huge. You're always doing things and you pretend that they don't have fears. So these would be like the mom that's like working a full-time job, keeping their house clean, taking the kids to practice, just like doing it all, like, but self-sabotaging themselves and their own self-care, right? Like just to be seen that you can like do it all is like winning, but while you're doing this, you're just naturally ignoring and harboring your emotions, your instincts, your needs, your authentic self, and your vulnerability. This is why we see a world of like burnt out moms. like, because they're doing it all and they have no help and they're suppressing all of their own needs to like live up to like what society says you should be. So, and, you know, while we are doing this, it has implications on our body. And I think people don't think it does, but it truly does. Our mind and the thoughts we have and the things that we do impact our body all the way down to our cells. Our cells are aware. So how this shows up in the body for women who, you know, reject their femininity is they often present as like intense, controlling, rigid, aggressive. And like, I can think of women in my head right now who, and I am similar to this myself. I was, you know, before I've begun to really accept and, you know, come into my femininity, but like, there's so many women that are like this. They're intense and controlling and aggressive, and they cast judgment on others, and they're miserable because they're not living up to like what is within them. They're denying their feminine self. And our emotions and our feelings influence our body. And when we suppress it, we become hardened. And this impacts our femininity. And our power as women is the ability to do things that men can't, not trying to do all that they can. And this is often seen, it often even shows up like in relationships. Like, are you the dominant, controlling type A one in your relationship? Because a lot of times, like, that's how it shows up. And so it's really important that we kind of take a step back and think about how we show our feminine self. How do we allow ourselves to be soft and open and compassionate? And you can tell this again, one, in your relationships, like how do you communicate with your spouse? But you can also see it in like, how do you talk about others around you? So like, do you find yourself gossiping and talking bad about other women? Do you like pick women apart for wearing a certain outfit or making a certain choice? This can also show if you lack that femininity in that essence too. And when we don't have that feminine energy, it actually can physically manifest in the body as imbalanced hormones. Like, think of all the women that are walking around with conditions like PCOS or anything like that, where they have like super, super high male hormones, those androgens, the testosterone, like, and, you know, so that is an example of how masculinity shows up in the body. So that's one way that society kind of steals our fertility from us, is from a young age, not accepting us for who we are as females and like pushing us to just be everything a man is from like day one. And then the next thing that happens is trying to keep up in life. And it's going to be hurting your fertility and also your thyroid. And your thyroid is the conductor of your metabolism train. Your thyroid sets the pace for your metabolism. So if your thyroid is slow, your metabolism is 100% slow. And, you know, the keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with societal norms, you know, is just a surefire way to sabotage your fertility. And our society, once again, we're coming back to it, broadcasting, doing it all. We see TV shows, movies, social media stories, and posts of 8-hour-long soccer tournaments on the weekends, busy jobs, taking care of others, having these perfect, aesthetically pleasing homes that are always clean, in shape bodies, like the list goes on and on. But what does maintaining all of that come with? Stress, and a lot of stress. If you are constantly go, 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 type A, taking on more and more, trying to achieve it all and be it all, chances are that you are running your metabolism, your thyroid, and your hormones into the ground. Again, I'll say it, if you want to conceive, your body has to feel safe. And this is going to look like being like really intentional with your time, slowing down, not taking on more than you can. And we're going to get into this on day 2 when we talk about having a safe physical body. But this like need to have more and never stop wanting more and continually just being like, go, 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 is really detrimental for a fertile body. Very detrimental. And the reason is because of the way that stress manifests within the body, which we're going to talk about now. So there are different types of stressors. And a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, I'm like, work is stress. We're stressed about money. I had a fight with my husband. But those kind of all go under psychological stressors. And there's actually 4 types of stressors that can be impacting your body all at once. So we're going to break down what each of them are. The first one is going to be physical stressors. So this would be like if you have an illness, disease, if you get an injury, digestive dysfunction, anything like that. Anything that's kind of like impacting your body physically is a stress. Like when you have a cold, that's a stressor. If you get the stomach bug, that's a stressor on your body. Although it's temporary in that moment, it is a stressor. Or if you have any sort of disease, like if you have, thyroid, Hashimoto's, any of those, IBS, any of that is going to be a stressor on your body. And I think these are ones people don't always think about. The next one is psychological. So this is the one that people often can easily resonate with. You have a hard day at work, fight with your spouse, you have finances, anxiety. This could also, psychological can also include emotions in the sense of like losing a loved one, or even like perceived stress. So things like jealousy, anything like that. All of that kind of goes under psychological. I think it's easy to resonate with psychological because a lot of times you feel it. So like when you have a hard day at work, you know when you're under that stress. But there's a couple that you probably don't recognize that are behind the scenes at play also. The first one is going to be metabolic stress. So this is anything that impacts your body's fuel and processes. So this will be under eating, having nutrient deficiencies, supplementing individual supplements, which is going to throw off the homeostasis and balance of others. So like, for example, if you supplement zinc and you take very high amounts of zinc, it's going to throw off your copper. Copper is needed for lots of mitochondrial functions and other processes in the body. So now you're going to have an issue with your copper. Other things that would be metabolic stress, blood sugar, irregularity, spikes or dips, things like running on stress hormones for too long and, adrenal fatigue, basically burning out your adrenals. All of these things are going to be metabolic stressors, and you might not necessarily feel them, but they're happening, underneath. Fasting would be another one that would be a metabolic stressor. And so now we have 3 stressors that could all be at play at one time. And then the last one, which is a big one, is environmental stressors. This is going to be any sort of toxins, exposure to pollutants, chemicals, carcinogens. And this could be in things like beauty products, makeup, shampoo, using perfume, anything with like fragrance in it. Tap water, if your tap water is not a good source, food, like processed food or foods that are genetically modified or use pesticides, or the cows and the chickens and the whatever you're eating, the pigs are getting hormones or antibiotics. All of that is an environmental stressor, and that adds to your stress bucket. And you have one stress bucket and all these stressors are going in it. And if you're not adequately handling that stress and fueling your body and getting enough minerals on board, then that stress bucket's going to overflow. And when it overflows, that's when your body's like, you know what? We have to make some changes right now. We have to adapt because this way of living, we can't keep up right now. So what we're going to do is, in order to save our resources, we're going to turn off reproductive health. We're going to not prioritize detoxing heavy metals. We're going to turn digestion down because we need to save our energy for processes that are needed for survival, like respiration and cardiac function and brain function. But unfortunately, reproductive function is not a priority when the body is living in stress, because the body is not going to try to make a baby when it's just trying to keep you alive. So now I want to talk about exactly what cortisol is going to do to your body and how it's going to impact your actual fertility. So let's talk about running on cortisol. So when we are stressed, our body makes stress hormones to protect us. These stress hormones are meant to be short-lived, but many of us are running on stress hormones constantly. And progesterone, which is, needed to make a baby, is a precursor to cortisol. But if your body's really, really stressed, your body's like, we don't need progesterone, we're not making a baby, and it just prioritizes making more cortisol. So one of the issues with running on cortisol is it's going to drive down progesterone and it drives up estrogen. So cortisol and estrogen are like two little arrows next to each other. They increase together, while cortisol and progesterone are like opposite arrows. When cortisol goes up, progesterone goes down. And we don't want imbalanced amounts of estrogen and progesterone. This is why so many women are walking around estrogen dominant, like you're walking around with painful periods, cramps, bloating, tender breasts, all these PMS symptoms, and then really heavy, awful periods, because we're just like riddled with estrogen because we run on cortisol all the time and we don't have enough progesterone to balance that out. All right, digestive dysfunction. So we talked about how when we're, really, really stressed, our body does not prioritize digestion. Digestion is a parasympathetic function. So like we have to be in a rest and digest state, parasympathetic, in order to properly have good digestion. When we're in fight or flight, when we're running on stress hormones, we are in sympathetic state. So basically, anytime we're running on stress hormones, our digestion is really slow / turned off. And when we have prolonged stress and prolonged slow digestion, this leads to things like having low stomach acid. It leads to food sitting in our stomach, not getting broken down the way it needs to, and can cause overgrowth of bad bacteria. It can cause leaky gut, where toxins are leaving your digestive tract and going into your bloodstream and then going around your body. And it can also lead to nutrition deficiencies because you're not absorbing the nutrients in your food because it's not being broken down properly. So that's why a lot of people that have fertility issues also have a lot of stomach issues, bloating, acid reflux, chronic constipation or diarrhea, cramps. A lot of times we see SIBO, which is a bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine, arise. Again, all these things happen when digestion is just turned off because we're living in fight or flight. The next would be iron overload. So we have this protein that binds to copper and helps make it unusable in the body, which is triggered by stress. But we need copper to help regulate our iron recycling system. So every day, our body, when it's operating optimally, can recycle 24 milligrams of iron a day. So technically, you only really need like 1 milligram of iron from your food in order to maintain a balanced iron profile within your body. But you need other nutrients and components to help move this recycling system, including copper and vitamin A, retinol, even magnesium. So when you don't have those, and when copper becomes unregulated, which it often does when we're stressed, that recycling system cannot operate the way it's supposed to. And because iron is a heavy metal, when it has no place to go, it doesn't just leave your body. It's just like, I don't know where to go. So it just goes into your tissues, your organs, your tissues, and it just sits there and it accumulates. And so, people get blood tests and they'll be like, oh, I'm anemic. But unless you truly have like a full panel done, you can't really diagnose if you're anemic or not. And iron could just be stored within your tissues. And there's a lot of ways we can get iron. It's like fortified into any grain products that you're buying in the grocery store. We easily get it through, consumption of meat. So it's very likely that a lot of times when you're very, very stressed, you are upping your iron being stored in your tissues, which we don't want. It creates inflammation and it also feeds pathogens within the gut. Oops, I'm going backwards. Okay, next, when we are in fight or flight, our body prioritizes keeping blood near the organs that we need to survive. So this is why a lot of times when you have poor metabolic health, poor metabolisms, poor thyroid, you have cold hands and feet. And that's because your body is just keeping the blood here near your heart and in your stomach and your organs, just the organs needed to keep you alive. It's not going to pump blood all the way down to your feet. It doesn't care if you have feet. It needs to keep you alive. Excuse me. So it literally just diverts blood flow away from non-essential organs and gives it to organs needed for survival. So we're going to be having reduced blood flow to our reproductive organs, which is not helpful when we are trying to conceive. Like I already said, when we're stressed, it's going to lower our thyroid and metabolism. Living in a stressed state communicates to the body it's not safe. So when your metabolism and thyroid are slowing down, it's because they want to conserve energy. So it doesn't want to waste any valuable energy because it's in its stress state and it just wants to slow down and conserve. I see this a lot with women who undereat because it's almost like your body's in a famine. It doesn't know when it's going to get enough calories again. So it slows down, and women will be eating like 1,000 calories a day and they don't understand why they're gaining weight. And it's because your body is become so slow that any calories you give it, it's saving as fat to then use later because it doesn't know when it's going to be properly fueled. But also running in a stress state, we burn through minerals faster, particularly like sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium. And we need ample potassium for thyroid hormone to get into our cells. It's like a little gatekeeper of our cells, and it opens and helps thyroid hormone get in. And when we don't have enough potassium, a lot of times our thyroid hormone cannot get into our cells for use, which will lead to low thyroid, low metabolism. Another thing that happens is when we are stressed, when we are in fight or flight, cortisol raises our blood sugar. And this is because it wants to give us a boost of energy in case we need to fight, bear, or run, fight or flight. But over time, if we're consistently boosting our cortisol high and also boosting our blood sugar high, it's going to lead to elevated blood sugars and eventually insulin resistance, which we see a lot in women that are trying to conceive, especially if they have like a PCOS picture, which is very common. So these are signs. So you're probably wondering like, well, how do I know if I am running on cortisol? How do I know if I'm in fight or flight? These are the signs. So I kind of mentioned it, but like painful periods, fatigue, brain fog, trouble sleeping, cold hands and feet, digestive issues, spotting before your period, infertility, procrastination, if you don't recover easily from your workouts, having cravings or chronic pain and illness, poor libido, low basal body temps is a big one, low energy, irregular cycles, dry, brittle hair, acne, anxiety, depression, if you're having miscarriages, if you wake up feeling tired, poor memory or attention, if you have like addictive personalities or you're likely to use a substance to make you feel better, defensiveness, being really irritable and overwhelmed. Of course, you don't have to have all of these symptoms to know you have poor metabolic health or you don't have a safe body. But if you can check off a bunch of these, then it's probably a sign that your body doesn't fully feel safe. And it's not like the end of the world, and you can create a safe body. You just have to know how to do it. And that's where, fertility doctors and Western medicine in particular, like just get it so wrong. And I want to talk about that a little bit. So Western medicine is all about treating symptoms instead of the root cause. So we have been trained by doctors to just believe that conditions just happen to us. We're broken, we can't heal, or we're told that we're just predisposed to things because it's genetic and our family members have it. And our genes are very important. Epigenetics, the whole idea of the way our genes can turn on and off and express themselves, does impact our health. But it's actually energetics that control epigenetics. So your influence is on your genes is from your environment. So it comes from having ample energy for our cells to function the way they need to. So your genes, the ones that you've been given at birth, may load the gun, but it's your environment and your decisions on a regular basis that pull the trigger. It's your environment and your decisions that turn those genes on and off and cause them to express themselves in different ways. But doctors completely disregard this. And I think it's important that we step back and think about what defines health, right? So like, what does our society say health is? What do you think good health is, right? I think that society teaches us that if you get blood tests once a year from your doctor and they're in range, you're not physically ill, you eat salads, maybe being a certain size or weight, and that means you're healthy, right? You only have to go to the doctor once a year. But that's actually so far off from what actually dictates a healthy and fertile body. And we've just, been taught to ignore symptoms, have no body awareness. We ignore bloating, cramps, headaches. We ignore cold hands and feet. And instead, we use quick solutions to fix these. And they don't often even get fixed. It's just masking the symptom. So doctors will, again, treat symptoms instead of the root cause. You go to the doctor, they do a blood panel, you have low iron, they put you on iron. You have high blood pressure, they put you on a med to bring your blood pressure down. But it doesn't fix the reason it's happening. The second you stop taking that pill, the dysfunction is still there. And doctors also lack education in medical school surrounding nutrition. They get minimal nutrition training in medical school. Which is another issue because they don't lead with nutrition and lifestyle as a way to heal your body. They always lead with pharmaceuticals because pharmaceutical companies are lining their pockets to push drugs. And also doctors in America really have this like ego-based care where because they have a medical degree, they have the knowledge, therefore they have the power. So this leaves patients unable to question, unable to inquire further without hostility or gaslighting. You know how many times after my miscarriage, I was told, like, what did you Google this? Like just horrible, or telling me like things I was saying like weren't happening, or symptoms I had like weren't really there, or it was like in my head. Like truly just so insulting. And they just like disregard that someone could know what's going on in their body. Like, your body, what you feel. And doctors are just like, no, you don't know anything. You don't have a medical degree. So that's kind of like step one. This is what I see a lot with like your regular practitioners, or maybe you're like OBGYN. And it's just really not helpful. And then next, since they lack nutrition education, it means patients are often blindly following recommendations for poorly studied diets that actually cause more harm than good. And these started from companies, that were in it to make millions. So things like limit sodium, limit sugar, use vegetable oils instead of butter, eat low carb, intermittent fast, don't eat red meat, don't eat egg yolks, eat tons of raw vegetables, no dairy, like all of these like foods that have been eaten for hundreds and hundreds of years and we know are so nutrient dense, like all of a sudden became the enemy in like the 60s, 70s. And it was all replaced with margarine, vegetable oils, stuff like that, which just do more harm than good. So Western medicine just really fails women when it comes to fertility because they disregard the wisdom of a woman's body in her fertility and conception. They use quick fixes like pills, procedures. They are results driven. Like that's all they care about. They just want to give you a baby. They don't care how they do it. So like when I went to the fertility doctor, they barely asked anything about me. And they just told me what it was going to be like to work with them. They're like, we'll make sure your tubes are open. Then we'll do IUI. When that doesn't work, then we'll do IUF. And then you can like adopt. And I'm like, you don't even know anything about me. You haven't asked me anything. Like you're just like, I'm just another like cattle in line to go down this journey. And it's what leads to women either IVF not working, having pregnancy complications, because getting pregnant is a natural process. Our body has to feel safe. And when you just pump a woman full of hormones and you bypass what her body is naturally doing, and you put a pregnancy on an unprepared body, there could be consequences, complications, poor health imprinted on that baby. Just like a slew of things. And I think the biggest thing is that they don't look at things like mineral status, metabolic markers, emotional or mental health, unresolved trauma, gut issues. They're just like, we have a system that can maybe get you a baby. It's going to cost $20,000. Sign up and we'll see if it works for you. We don't care why you're not getting pregnant. We're just letting you know that we might be able to get you pregnant for a lot of money and a painful, long journey. So I think it's just such a huge disservice to women because they just sell you a service. Fertility treatments are $1 billion industry and they're growing every single year. And I've met a ton of women where they're like, I don't want to force a baby, but I'm scared if I don't do this, I won't have a baby. And that's where it's truly heartbreaking because I've had women come to me with multiple miscarriages. I've had women come to me that have gone through IVF and it didn't work. And if you create safety within the body and you have an abundance of energy, you can conceive naturally. It's totally possible. So that's what I teach in my course and with my one-on-one coaching. That's what we're going to dive into. I'm going to give you actionable steps to take tomorrow when we're talking about physical safe body. I'm going to teach you exactly what you need to do to have a safe physical body, the steps you need to take. And then on Thursday, we're skipping Wednesday. There's no training Wednesday. On Thursday, we are going to go into all of the things that you need to do to recognize conflicts within, handle unresolved trauma, notice your subconscious patterns and beliefs, and rewire them so you truly have a safe physical and emotional body that are one. So that is all we have for today for day one. So this is, let's see what's next. I don't know why this isn't coming in. Oh, there we go. Okay, so day one, we talked about failures of Western medicine. Tomorrow, safe physical body, safe emotional body. If you cannot make